There is a phrase that gets thrown around constantly in the self-help world.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Right. It's on coffee mugs. It's whispered in yoga studios. And it's probably on a throw pillow somewhere in my house right now. Just let it go.
It sounds so gentle, doesn't it? Like you're just releasing a balloon into the sky.
Exactly. It sounds peaceful.
Yeah.
It implies that detachment is this serene, calm process where you just breathe out and, everything is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But then I looked at the stack of sources for today's deep dive, and I realized that letting go, at least in the deep philosophical sense, is actually violent.
Very.
It's not peaceful at all, at least not at the start.
No, it's usually traumatic. And you're right, the sources today are fascinating because on the surface, they look like a filing error.
Totally.
We have Chuck Palahniuk's 1996 novel Fight Club, which is pretty bloody and completely anarchic. And then we have the Gospel of Matthew from the New Testament.
It is a wild pairing. I mean, you've got Tyler Durden, the patron saint of basement brawls and homemade explosives, sitting right next to a spiritual teacher in ancient Jerusalem.
Yeah, it's quite the contrast.
One guy's making soap out of human fat, and the other is talking about the kingdom of heaven. But the mission of this deep dive, and what really hooked me, is that they are diagnosing the exact same human illness.
And prescribing a remarkably similar cure, honestly. They both argue that what we call security, our stuff, our status, our bank accounts is actually a cage.
Right.
And the only way to get out is to break it.
So today we're exploring the sacred art of detachment, but not the Marie Kondo does this spark joy version. We're talking about the burn it down version.
Which is where the real transformation happens. So let's start with the burning.
Let's get into Fight Club. Now, most people know the movie, they know the rules. First rule is you don't talk about it. But looking at Palahniuk's actual text, the philosophy is so much denser than just guys hitting each other in a basement.
Oh, absolutely.
The fighting is almost a side effect.
It is. The fighting is just a symptom of the liberation. To understand the connection we're making today, we really have to look at the character of Tyler Durden, not just as a chaos agent, but as a liberator.
That's the specific word the narrator uses, right?
Right.
A liberator. Usually we think of a liberator as someone who breaks you out of a literal prison.
Right.
But in this case, the prison is an IKEA-furnished condo.
In a way, yes. There is this pivotal moment early in the book that sets everything in motion. Tyler Durden destroys the narrator's possessions. He blows up his apartment.
And the narrator is absolutely devastated. I mean, this is his sanctuary. I actually pulled this quote from the notes because I think it captures the modern condition so perfectly.
Let's hear it.
The narrator says, "I had to know what kind of dining set defines me as a person."
Yeah, that is the IKEA nesting instinct.
Is that Palahniuk's actual term?
Yes, the nesting instinct. It's this biological drive we've warped into consumerism. We build a shell out of goods to protect ourselves from the fact that we have no idea who we actually are. We think, if I buy this specific sofa with the green stripe, I am a person who has good taste. I am stable. I am an adult.
It's identity construction through catalog shopping.
Exactly.
I've definitely been there. You feel like if you just get that one lamp, the room in your life will finally make sense.
Precisely. You are trying to buy a personality. So when Tyler Durden blows up the condo, he isn't just destroying wood and fabric. He is destroying the narrator's constructed identity.
That's terrifying.
It is, but look at how the perspective shifts. Later in the text, the narrator reflects on the explosion. He says, "The liberator who destroyed my property has realigned my perceptions."
Realign my perceptions. That's such a heavy lifting phrase. It suggests that before the explosion, he was hallucinating.
He was hallucinating that he was his khakis. He was hallucinating that he was his job title. Palahniuk is arguing that we are all walking around in a trance, completely hypnotized by marketing.
Right.
When the stuff is gone, the hypnosis breaks. It's a philosophical reboot.
But it's a painful reboot. And this leads to the part of the book that I think is the hardest to swallow, the distinction between self-improvement and self-destruction.
This is the core thesis. We live in a culture of optimization. Even now, you look at the top charts, it's all about biohacking, investing, climbing career ladders. We are obsessed with adding to the self.
Making the self bigger, stronger, richer.
Right. And Palahniuk takes a sledgehammer to that entire industry. The book posits, maybe self-improvement isn't the answer. Maybe self-destruction is the answer.
See, when I first read that years ago, I took it literally.
Yeah.
Like, go out and wreck your life, drive your car off a bridge.
A lot of people do.
But looking at the deeper analysis here, he's not talking about suicide. He's talking about the ego.
Exactly. You aren't destroying your actual life force. You are destroying the consumerist identity, the mask. The argument is that you have to hit rock bottom. You have to lose the fear of poverty, the fear of judgment, to strip away all those layers of conditioning.
So the self that gets destroyed is the fake self, the one that worries about the credit score.
Correct. And the claim is that underneath all that rubble, there is a pure being. But you can't find it while you're still decorating the cage. It's a subtraction method, not an addition method.
It reminds me of that famous line from the book, the one everyone quotes but maybe doesn't fully digest. The things you own end up owning you.
That is the bridge right there.
Yeah.
That is the connection point. Because if you take that sentence, the things you own end up owning you, and you translate it into an ancient context, you basically land right in the middle of the Gospel of Matthew.
Which brings us to our second source. We are leaving the paper street house and transporting ourselves back about 2,000 years to Jerusalem. We're looking at Matthew chapter 19, verse 24.
The famous eye of the needle.
It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God.
Now, be honest. When you hear that, what do you picture?
I picture a literal sewing needle, like from a sewing kit, and a literal camel. And I picture a rich guy standing there looking at it and going, well, I guess I'm doomed. It sounds like a statement of physical impossibility.
That is the surface reading, and for centuries, people have taken it exactly that way. It's a very effective warning.
Yeah.
But the source material we have today points to a common historical interpretation, sometimes called the gate theory, that changes a visual completely. It shifts it from a magic trick to a process.
Right. The source talks about the eye of the needle as a specific gate in the walls of Jerusalem. Walk us through this, because the visual details here are what really make it click for me.
So the interpretation is that there was a small pedestrian gate known as the Eye of the Needle. It wasn't the main gate where you'd drive a chariot or a caravan through. It was a service entrance, essentially. It was narrow and it was low.
Okay, so it's a tight squeeze.
Very tight. Now imagine a merchant arriving at the city late at night. The main gates are locked. He has to use this small gate, but he has a camel. And that camel is loaded down with goods.
It's got the saddlebags, the rugs, the spices, the gold, all the security the merchant has accumulated.
Exactly. The camel is physically too wide to fit through the opening because of the baggage.
So what does the merchant have to do? He can't just push the camel through.
No, he has to unload it. Every single bag, every piece of baggage has to be taken off. The camel has to be completely stripped.
There's the subtraction again.
Sounds like Fight Club.
It's identical.
Oh.
And here is the second part of the visual that I find so compelling. Even after the camel is stripped, the gate is still too low, so the camel supposedly had to crawl through on its knees.
Wow. Okay, I pause on that image for a second. You have this large, proud animal, a symbol of wealth and power. In that time, stripped of its burden, and then forced into a posture of absolute humility, shuffling through the dirt on its knees.
It changes the meaning of the verse, doesn't it? It's not that the rich man cannot enter, it's that he cannot enter while holding onto his stuff.
That is a massive distinction. The source notes here that the rich man fails not because money is inherently evil. The text isn't saying currency is demonic.
No, money is a tool. The failure comes from where the man places his security. The source describes it as false security. False security, let's unpack that. Because I think we all do this, whether we're rich or not.
We do. We trust our baggage to keep us safe. We look at the bank account, the job title, the reputation, and we think, as long as I have this, I'm okay. Nothing can hurt me. We treat those things like a god.
And the biblical view is that this is a form of idolatry, not bowing down to a golden statue, but bowing down to your own net worth.
Exactly. Idolatry is just taking a good thing and turning it into an ultimate thing. The eye of the needle gate is basically a checkpoint that says, you can come in, but your false god has to stay outside.
You have to trust the source or the kingdom rather than your backup plan.
Which is terrifying. Just like it's terrifying for the narrator in Fight Club to lose his condo, the baggage makes us feel big. It makes us feel protected. To take it off and get on our knees, that feels like weakness.
But the paradox, and this is where these two sources really converge, is that this weakness is the only path to the destination.
Yes. We have the liberator Tyler Durden blowing up the baggage, and we have the eye of the needle demanding the baggage be unloaded.
Both are barriers. One is destroyed, one is voluntarily removed, but the end result is an empty, humble entry into a new state of existence.
It creates a vacuum where reality can finally rush in.
I want to synthesize this a bit more because the parallels in methodology are fascinating. We established that they both agree on the problem, that the things you own end up owning you. But look at the methods.
Right. Fight Club is aggressive. It frames life as a great war of the spirit. It views consumerism almost like a hypnosis or a sleepwalking state.
So the destruction of property is a slap in the face. It's a violent wake-up call to snap you out of it.
Because the ego is stubborn. Tyler Durden knows the narrator would never give up his IKEA furniture voluntarily. He loves it too much. So Tyler makes the decision for him. He burns it.
Whereas the biblical method seems quieter.
It is quieter, but in some ways it requires more agency from the individual. The gate doesn't strip the camel for you. The merchant has to choose to take the bags off.
That almost feels harder.
I think it is. You have to look at your security, your bag of gold, or in modern terms, maybe your prestige, or your carefully curated image, and you have to decide that the destination is worth more than the baggage.
And a lot of people can't do it. There's that story in the Bible about the rich young ruler who walks away sad because he has great possessions.
He got to the gate, looked at the squeeze, looked at his stuff, and decided he couldn't let go. He preferred the cage.
It really frames life as a choice between safety and freedom.
That is the core tension. We are biologically wired for safety. We want the nest. We want the tenure. We want the guarantee. But the spirit, the pure being, the kingdom, craves freedom, and freedom is inherently unsafe.
You can't be free if you're anchored to the ground by 1,000 pounds of luggage.
And you can't fly if you're clutching a sofa.
It's a ridiculous image, but it works perfectly. You know, this makes me think about how we navigate our own lives. We aren't necessarily starting underground fight clubs, at least I'm not, and we aren't all merchants in Jerusalem, but we are all carrying stuff.
We are hoarders of security. We hoard credentials, we hoard savings, we hoard reputation. And what these texts are asking us is this stuff actually serving you? Or are you serving it?
The things you own end up owning you. It's scary how quickly a luxury becomes a necessity, and then a necessity becomes a shackle.
That's the false security mentioned in the source. We build these walls to keep the world out, to keep pain out, but eventually we realize we've just built a cell.
And the only way out is to dismantle the cell, or to have a liberator come and blow it up for you.
That's a crucial point. Sometimes life is the liberator.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about the things we consider disasters. You lose a job, you go through a terrible breakup, the market crashes and your savings take a hit, a diagnosis comes in.
Those are the Tyler Durden moments,
Yeah.
external events that blow up our security.
Exactly. And our natural reaction is to scream, my life is over, everything is going wrong.
But if we look at it through the lens of this deep dive,
If we look at it through this lens, that disaster might be the only way you could ever fit through the eye of the needle. It might be the teacher who clears all possessions to set you free.
that is such a profound shift in perspective. Instead of viewing loss as a tragedy, you view it as a necessary step for spiritual survival.
It's the difference between saying I've lost everything and saying I've been stripped down to what is real.
It reminds me of people who go through major crises and come out the other side saying it was the best thing that ever happened to them. I always thought they were just coping.
Maybe they aren't coping. Maybe they just finally fit through the gate. They found out that they didn't die without the baggage. They found out who they were when they weren't the CEO or the husband or the rich guy.
They found the pure being that Palahniuk talks about.
Exactly. And that is a form of peace that you cannot buy. In fact, the buying prevents it.
It's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
It really makes you look at your credit card bill and your online profile a little differently.
It does. It forces you to ask, am I building a life or am I just building a fortress?
And is the fortress keeping the bad stuff out, or is it keeping me in?
Precisely.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we've gone from homemade soap and explosives to ancient stone gates and kneeling camels. We've seen that whether you're listening to a fictional anarchist like Tyler Durden or a biblical teacher, the message is shockingly consistent. The baggage has to go.
It's a universal call to examine our attachments, to look at the things we rely on and ask if they are bridges to where we want to go or if they are barriers.
And to recognize that letting go isn't just about tidying up. It's about surviving the transition from who we think we are to who we actually are.
It's the art of dying to the self so you can actually live.
Well, this has been an absolute journey. I don't think I'll ever walk past an IKEA or see a picture of a camel without thinking about this.
I think that's the goal, to see the matrix of consumerism a little more clearly.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you, the listener, with something to mull over this week. We talked a lot about false security. The idea that the things we own end up owning us. So here's the question. What baggage are you currently carrying that you think is keeping you safe, but is actually just a cage disguised as safety?
And if you were forced to drop it today, who would you be on the other side?
Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.